This question comes from John in Amana, Iowa, and it relates to that argument that you got into with Senator Santorum. When Iran has a nuclear weapon, he asks, and attacks Israel with it, how will President Paul respond?
Well, Israel has 300 of them, so do you think Iran is going to attack them with a weapon they don't have? And our own CIA says there's no concrete evidence that they're actually building on it. So we are going to turn the world upside down and attack Iran because someday they might have a nuclear weapon. And yet our leaders talk to the Chinese as well as the Soviets when they had thousands and thousands of nuclear weapons. I don't think it makes any sense to take on Iran and fight them, and that's essentially what some people want to do. They say that we have to have another war. Even Robert Gates, getting out of the position of Secretary of Defense, is saying anybody who thinks we need another war needs their head examined. And that's the way I feel about it. But there is the Iranians are a third world nation. They don't have an army or a navy of any sort. They don't have intercontinental ballistic missiles. And a country that has all that oil in their country, and they can't even produce enough gasoline, and they have to depend on importing gasoline, and we're supposed to build up war fever and go to war over this? I don't think for a minute that if they got those weapons, they wouldn't dare thinking about attacking Israel. Israel would take care of them, especially if they had no restraints from us. They would take care of them in minutes. It's not going to happen. It's all war propaganda.
All right. On that topic, a writer named Political Tool says, here's a question for Ron Paul. Does he really believe letting Iran develop a nuke is okay? His isolationist ideas are fantasy. Your response?
I'm not an isolationist. I'm a free trader. The isolationists are the ones that won't even trade with Cuba. And they're the ones who want to put on sanctions. They want to isolate these countries and always use sanctions. So I think that's wrong. Our founders advised us that we trade with people and be friends with as many as are willing to accept our friendship. And we're doing the opposite. We get involved in these entangling alliances. We go to war under NATO and the United Nations. And like I said, what are there's nuclear weapons all over the place over there. If you were an Iranian, I'm sure you would say, well, it's not in our best interest. We ought to gain some respect because if we have a weapon, maybe they might not attack us. But the weapons, they are surrounded by nuclear weapons. Israel, India, Pakistan, China, the United States, Russia, they all have these nuclear weapons, and they barely think about it. When they try to enrich for peaceful purposes, they get condemned for it. So, yes, there's a lot of bad people over there. There's a lot of violent people around the world. But believe me, the Iranians don't have a tradition of sending troops and invading countries 6,000 miles from their shore and occupying another country. Matter of fact, they're pretty respectful of their borders. And the wars they got into in the 1980s was because we instigated the Iraqis to go into Iran. So I would say a good assessment of that would give you a better appreciation of their position.
You have time for a couple more questions.